Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, the home of Googlization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy shift going on in the world of business, technology, and HR. Here's your host, Ira Wolfe, and co-host, Joyce Joya.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. And thank you for being part of Googlization Nation. We had a great interview. If you missed it, hopefully you'll roll the video back a little bit and listen to Tony Carnesi and Brian Gorman. We were talking about the 4-day work week, and it's not what you think. It's not necessarily just going back to a four 10-hour days. It takes a lot more thought than that. But now we're going to talk about another topic we've been following for, well, we've been discussing and we've had some deep conversation. This should be interesting with Kim Bettie, who is a coach. She's part of the Ngomo network community now, which is also very exciting. So we appreciate Ngomo, and that's how we made the connection. Thank you, Joyce, for introducing her. We'll be talking about emotional intelligence, favorite subject after adaptability quotient for me, but emotional intelligence, which is an important part of that, and diversity. Kim talks about the convergence of those two and how they relate. So we'll welcome Kim Bettie to the show. There she is. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Kim.
You're on mute, Kim.
There we are.
So
I must confess, I'm a Zoomologist, so StreamYard is new for me. So I have to figure out the unmute and the lights and all that. So thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Kim, I'm fascinated because we've talked about AQ being part of diversity, the adaptability quotient. Obviously, in order to have AQ, you have to have EQ, and I think people are more familiar with emotional intelligence or emotional quotient than that. But I love the aspect of what you're bringing, and I think hopefully I'm framing it right about diversity intelligence is really the convergence of those two and how they relate, because I'm not sure people get it. They sort of say, well, diversity is an HR thing, EQ or emotional intelligence is a personal thing, personal development, career development. What's one have to do with the other?
I love that. And thanks again, Joyce, for inviting me, and so wonderful to officially meet you, Ira. I've seen you on your show and to your entire community. And thanks for that. I love even looking at it from the adaptability quotient because it really is all connected. And I didn't think of that when you really look at the adaptability of something that we're familiar with, like emotional intelligence, and how you have to have a certain amount of flexibility to really integrate in this big topic that's blowing up in our faces called really diversity inclusion, and we have to adapt. And so the way that I see it is through the lens of emotional intelligence, which has already been proven to be effective. It's a soft skills. Look, it's HR professionals. We spend our whole life attempting to prove to the business professionals that soft skills matters. And so emotional intelligence, we've already done that work. So I looked at it and I really thought about it, and I said, what's the best way to really show leaders the value of diversity inclusion, right? Because diversity intelligence is really saying, I value diversity in the workplace. We know that you can't have the value of diversity unless you have inclusion. You can bring a variety of people with diversity of thought. And if you don't include them, pull them to the table, get them to speak up, talk about what they think, talk about what they feel, why they do, then there is no value. So we really have to do this in an intelligent way. It doesn't mean, Ira, Joyce, that I'm super intelligent. Now I know everything about diversity, right? It means that I come into it with this curiosity. So long story short, which we have 30 minutes to talk about it, but long story short, my aha moment was diversity intelligence is the new emotional intelligence. So let's create some competencies, just like we did with emotional intelligence, so that we can measure them and so that we can have leaders learn them and we can integrate that into the workplace. Yay.
So what are some of those competencies? I'm sure you've either identified those or are giving a lot of thought to that.
I've been in the lab, like Steve Jobs. I've been in my garage thinking about that. And let's back up a little bit. And I can't wait to find out what you talk about the AQ, and the competencies related to that. When you think about emotional intelligence, we're talking about really, look, I'm going to use this word. I'm going to share from my diversity, from Ice Cube's rap song, "You better check yourself before you wreck yourself." Okay. I literally teach people this, right? I have them going, "You better check yourself before you wreck yourself." I'm like, yes, Coach KB says that. And it's really about, before you have a conversation with someone, engage someone, you have to check yourself first. And if we think about any training on communication, it's really about framing yourself. So when you look at emotional intelligence, you have self-awareness, and you also have self-management.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have social awareness, aware of other people and their hot buttons, and then relationship management, AKA check yourself before you wreck yourself, right? Now, when you look at diversity intelligence, valuing diversity and really inclusion, we have to look at it from the perspective of the diversity dimensions. So, I am Black. I actually recently, Joyce knows this, the reason why this all came to be is I discovered, Ira, my great-great-grandfather's slave narrative. Okay. Recently, we had all this going on in our family. We didn't know. I knew he lived to be 104. I knew he was formerly enslaved. I didn't know that when he was 89 years old, he wrote his slave narrative about his experience. So it's opened my eyes so much. And in doing so, it sparked this diversity intelligence. So I'm a Black woman who, in the workplace, I'm going to get deep for a second. I can do this in the context of diversity. If I don't have that flexibility that the last guests were talking about, like 4 days a week, and integrate that, I will literally feel enslaved. It's in my DNA, and I didn't even know what was going on. And so I realized that all the things that are going on in the news today, if it's racially charged, I get triggered. Okay, so I'm a Black woman that has in my transgenetical look at it, the whole thing of this type of situation going on. And so I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm divorced. I have a learning disability that we didn't know about. It's not dyslexia, but it's related to numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I get confused with the directions and all that. I could go on. I'm a woman of a certain age, Joyce. I just say over 40. I'm going to say that forever. No matter what decade I get at. So all that to say, self-awareness now for me with diversity intelligence is my diversity dimensions and my culture and my history. So there has to be this vulnerability and risk of me aware and in touch with it. It has to be transparency, another competency, Ira, and being able to share that. And then I have to be able to have empathy for others and their situation. I don't know everything, but I can feel and walk in your shoes. And then a reciprocity type of relationship. So I say, long story, once again, that the vulnerability is the new self-awareness. Transparency is the new self-management. Empathy is the social awareness, and reciprocity is relationship management.
I don't know if you watch New Amsterdam, but if watch
my favorite show.
Watch last night's show if you haven't seen it, because there's this awareness. It's like, you mean that physician, even you, the top surgeon, gets, because you're Black, gets paid 35% less than the white surgeons, but they're standing in the hallway and he's talking to one of the employees of like, what can I do? What can I do? And he looks behind him and there's all these pictures of white, like all the white trustees and the founders. He said, take those down. And that was like the next conversation of taking it down. But they literally had these conversations that you're talking about right now A powerful show. And again, even if you don't like the acting, I mean, the messaging was one of the better displays of well, the one piece of advice that they gave the lead in this was, she said, "What can I do? What can I do?" And she said, "Shut up, stop talking, listen, observe."
Wow.
And it's like, well, how do, is it just stop talking?
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful show. It never fails, by the way, at some point during that show to make me feel like I want to cry. Sometimes it's joy, sometimes it's empathy, it's someone else's pain, but boy, that show is so well written. Whoever writes that show
I'll
deserves
check it out.
an award. And let's get back to diversity in the workplace.
Yeah.
You talk about courageous conversations and the fact that business leaders have to have courageous conversations, Kim.
Yeah.
How do we get business leaders to encourage that, and how do we help them feel comfortable in having those conversations?
You know, because I said all that with all the passion, but the truth of the matter is you could sit people around the table, and if it's not a safe space, they're not going to open up. They're not going to talk about their great-great-grandfather's slave narrative and how they feel traumatized and like, you're enslaving me. You're not going to do that, right? You're going to button up your jacket and play the role. And today, many shows, many places, I was watching, one of my favorite shows is A Million Little Things. And they were just talking about one of the Asian young kids was on a Zoom. And because of COVID, his friends, his school workers, colleagues were saying to the little boy, "You need to put a mask on because you'll get us all infected with COVID." And the mother overheard it and she said, "You can't infect, you're not going to infect them any more than anybody else. And you aren't on Zoom." And then she told her husband, who's actually white, that they were doing that to him because he's Asian. And so it's so important that we create this safe space so that we can have it. And here's really the drum roll moment for me, Ira. The workplace is the best place for us to do this. Let's see if I can say this in a politically correct way. I'm not even going to try to be politically correct. It's the only place where you have people trapped up in a building and you can say, we're going to do professional development. And so you have diversity and inclusion programs and a semi-engaged audience, at least they feel like they have to do it. And if you can engage them in why they need to do it, and if you can raise their diversity intelligence, emotional intelligence related to diversity, it can go higher. It's a higher purpose is what I say. Outside of the four walls of the business, it will ooze into the conversations parents have with kids or the person in your neighborhood or in your community or perhaps even the country. So I believe you have to do it. So the first thing I think is that you think about it from a higher perspective and a lower perspective that, we need to do this for our country. Some people are, appeals to them. And then why do we do it? Because diversity is not going to impact the bottom line if we don't do it and create this safe space. And so we have to create a safe space, and it really starts with leadership. Look, this is a really good example, Joyce. In Gomu, we talked about that, right? Al and us, we were having a conversation. Al, I hope I have your permission to share. I'm going to share this a little bit, right?
For those who don't know who Al is, we had him on as a guest. Al is one of the founders of Ngomu. Go ahead, Kim.
So let's look at it from a business perspective. All the coaches, we were having a conversation about diversity, and Black History Month was coming up. Here's the safe space, Ira. And so Al and the rest of a few other people innocently said, I don't know if you were right there or not, Joyce, instead of doing Black History Month, let's do People of Color Month. Such an innocent, beautiful thing. And I said, oh no, that's not how it works. It's a tad different. And I am a person of color. We're talking about Black history in a sense like my great-great-grandfather. And we want to talk about it from that perspective. Al said, oh my gosh, this is why we need a safe space, because I need to say, Kim, I didn't know. And I'm like, I know. And I don't know everything. I'm not representing every Black person, but I don't think that's going to work. So what we did was put a blog together where we celebrate a lot of different ethnicities, all of them. And we do it each month. So we have to have that kind of courageous conversation and that kind of space where you can go, I don't know. I have a question. let's talk about it. Let's experiment with it like that.
Kim, thank you so much for being our guest. We understand that we can access a video of you now on the ngomu.com website. So I'm looking forward to looking at that. And what are you doing in Ngomu? Tell us about that quickly.
Yes, absolutely. What's fascinating about what I'm doing with Ngomu is typically we would be working inside of a company, which is we must do, create those courageous conversations where we can talk about diversity. We at Ngomu, though, we're going to impact individuals on several different types of companies, right? And so we can have that same type of engaging dialogue with people from different companies. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, facilitating a learning community, creating the safe space, raising our diversity intelligence, and having that kind of conversation. So once again, it then goes to their companies, to their communities, to our country.
Excellent. Kim, thank you so much for being with us today. You were just wonderful. I can't wait to see how you and I might work together in the future.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Back to you, Ira.
Now, I said last week, I think I coined that segment, or maybe both segments, we're just getting started. And again, so true. We'll definitely need to have Kim back because, again, we were just scratching the surface. And maybe we can do a panel, maybe a few people we've had.
Great idea. Love that idea.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. The all-stars from the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. So here we are again. We're just a few for a minute or so from the end of the show. We really appreciate everybody being here, for being listeners. Whether you're listening live, we're live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, Facebook, w4cy.com, Talk4 Radio or Talk4 TV. Again, you can watch us live, and hopefully you continue to do that, or you can catch the replays on almost every podcast that's available there and also up on YouTube. Reminder, next Tuesday, April 13th, doing the webinar. You can go to bit.ly/AQ41321. There it is. Thank you, Roxy. I appreciate that. And next week, we hope you'll come back. Got another great conversation. Went blank on his name from ClickSuasion.
Oh, Mike Barbera.
Mike Barbera.
Yes.
So absolutely. And I believe our second one, we're going to have Mike Spramuli back. Need to confirm that, and talking about some tech tips. He's going through an interesting experience and some things he's learned. So again, thank you very much for listening to and watching Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Until next week, don't let the shift hit your plans.